All right, welcome back, everybody, to part two of our top 10 Star Wars moments. We're going to pick up where we left off with our moments 5 through 1 for this episode to get to our top moments. And we'll be right back after this.
Hey!
Hey!
At the Cantina Club.
Oh my god! So
I love it. It was,
humorous.
hey! And there was a frozen moment, and then just. It was like he was just suddenly smitten, like God struck him or something. Okay.
Right, so listen. All right.
We're back! Hey, Cantina Clubbers!
Before we jump into the rest of our countdown, we're going to do a couple of quick unboxings, and I will start. Nothing major this week. Just picked up the latest issue of Star Wars Insider.
Oh, cool.
Vader?
In fact, I haven't even cracked that open yet. I'm still actually making my way through the last issue, the one with Solo on the cover, which actually has some really, really good articles. I recommend you pick it up. It's really, really good stuff. All right, so what else we got?
Well,
Rito, you got
from England. We've seen it in picture form. This is a temporary home for it. I gotta get it real.
Oh, oops. Can you hold it at an angle because it's reflecting right now?
There, that's better.
Yeah.
Because it's coming up nothing but the reflection.
Yeah, there you go. That's good. Oh, cool.
Oh, that's
wow,
fantastic.
I didn't realize it was that big. Now I'm seeing myself reflected. Oh,
So,
neat.
Rito,
Oh, yeah.
explain.
Yeah, the reflections are
Oh,
pretty hard to deal with. But
that's perfect.
yeah, it's 10 by 20, and I need to get an actual decent frame for it. This is a cheap frame that I just wanted to store it.
And
Have something to store it on.
it was signed by Jeremy Bullock, right?
Yeah. Happy 40th.
Kind of explain some of the background on that.
There is a gentleman in England named Graham Colley. He does GC signings. You can find him online or on Facebook. I found him through the Star Wars Autograph Universe, which is a group on Facebook that I'm a member of. Mm-hmm. And there's guys on there that are just incredible experts on. They can tell you whether your autograph's real or a forgery, just by looking at it. And anyway, he was a member on there. I don't remember how. I just decided to join his page and started talking to him. And he had a private signing set up with Jeremy Bullock when he came back from the U.S. from a tour of different conventions to do a private signing in Jeremy Bullock's home with him and his wife. And he basically charged nothing. It's the same, you could just pay him for a spot, and he would go get it done for you. I paid for the printing the picture, and I decided I wanted a 10 by 20 just because I just thought it looked really cool in that wide format.
Absolutely.
And a
That's such
big
a great shot, too.
Yeah, I thought if I was going to get a dedication to the Cantina Club, it would look really good on a big. And when I saw that one, I just thought that's the one. I don't know why, but the red background and the whole thing, I just immediately connected with that picture. So he was kind enough to take care of it. Sent it in 2 poster tubes, double tubed up, all the way from England. Made it completely pristine condition. So
Fantastic.
he's a great guy. I've talked to him a lot online. He's been doing the London Film and Comic-Con this weekend, and he's been doing like 30 different autographs for people like James Caan, the guy who played Peter Weller, RoboCop. I think David Duchovny was there. A whole bunch of Doctor Who, like David Tennant announced at the last minute he was going to be there on Sunday. Christopher Eccleston was there. His first convention. Yeah.
Huh.
So anyway, he was getting all these autographs for people. I wanted the original guys from Empire Strikes Back, the Imperial officers. 3 of them were there. But he had so many things to deal with and stuff that I really couldn't make up my mind on it. So we'll get him next time, hopefully.
But thank you, Graham.
Thank you,
Graham.
Really cool, man. Appreciate it.
And I think he put on his page he's helped like 287 people with autographs this year from London to the different parts of Europe and the US and stuff. So
fantastic.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Excellent.
Neat
Okay. All right, so before we jump into the countdown continuation, let's run through some quick honorable mentions that didn't make the cut. Would you like to start us off, Gundark?
Yeah, I think that'll be a great lead-in because my first honorable mention is Luke having his hand cut off. In The Empire Strikes Back, I was like,
Causing his hand to fall off.
yeah, causing his hand to fall off. That one was. It didn't quite make the top 10 cut for me, but it's really important for me, especially because of the original memory of seeing it in the theater for the first time. Because when I went into the theater the opening week of Empire Strikes Back, I had already looked at the novelization for Empire Strikes Back. They had released it before the movie for some reason. And so I already knew that Darth Vader was Luke's father. But I had no idea that he was going to lose a limb. So I didn't know that Luke would be horribly maimed in that movie. That was not revealed in the novel. I think the novel said that his hand was slashed or something like that.
Yeah, he said he slashed his hand and the saber fell.
Yeah, Vader slashed his hand. It's not like he lost a limb. And so
Right.
we're sitting in the theater, and I guess Greedo was sitting. Was I sitting next to you?
Yeah, I remember your gasp. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're, oh my God!
And I had you on one side, my dad on the other side, and I think I was grabbing my dad's arm, and I just, that's the closest I have ever come to passing out in a movie theater. I nearly fainted when that happened. The revelation
They
of
had
him,
Luke!
his father was, it was just like, that was just lost in a haze of Luke has been maimed. Luke has been maimed.
Luke had been
So
maimed.
that was horrific. So the
You know what I remember from that showing was our dad saying to me when Captain Nita was strangled, and he said, "I'm going to apologize, Sword Vader." And then the next thing you see is he's dying. He goes, "That's the wages of sin." That's what he said to me. He said, "That's what happens when you work for the devil. Your
Darth
reward
Vader
is death."
strangles you.
Yeah, your reward is death. There's no apologizing.
the wages.
That's how my dad saw it.
Oh.
Just like he saw when we saw Star Wars together, he thought the Ben Kenobi thing was, and Luke was named after the disciple Luke or the apostle Luke, and
Gotcha.
he saw a lot of religious parallel, which there is. There's a lot of religious parallels.
there are, yeah.
I still remember that.
But yeah, naturally,
saying, that's the way to
first.
the son. Get choked to death by the devil.
Does anybody else who wants has an honorable mention?
Why don't you do one, Corellium?
Okay, actually, I'll just rattle off three because I only have three, and two of them have already been mentioned in the last episode. One of them is the Star Destroyer collision in Rogue One. That's gotta be in there. It just didn't quite crack the top 10. Just for
Sure.
We could have 100 Star Wars moments. It's not cracking the top 10 doesn't mean it's not good. So the Star Destroyer collision in Rogue One. The other one that was mentioned already was from The Empire Strikes Back. Yoda lifting Luke's X-wing out of the swamp on Dagobah. Just everything about that is just such a great scene. And then the one that hasn't been mentioned yet is R2 when he gets zapped by the Jawas in A New Hope. When the Jawa just jumps out from behind the rock and zaps him, and he just glows blue and falls over.
And that silence for the second before he keels over made everybody laugh in the theater. Even though they were upset he was shot, everybody busted out laughing. Yeah. And people were fascinated by the Jawas too, and the sounds they made and everything like that.
Yeah.
Was that your three?
That was my three, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to run through a quick list. I said every Imperial officer moment. the gut shot officer in Star Wars, the guy who has the flaming hole shot at him in the detention block. Where are you taking the thing? That guy? They've kind of cut that out to where you can't see that as well anymore. But originally, you got a really good view of that, and I always loved it. It was a pyrotechnic, but there's
like a pyrotechnic.
I just assumed that's what a laser gun did to your guts when they shot you, and he deserved it. I loved him getting shot. They've kind of dumbed that down. Close the blast doors, and again, there's a little story behind this because originally that was one of the big jokes, little side jokes in Star Wars. Close the blast doors, and then open the blast doors. Open the blast doors. Well, later when they released it. you're waiting. It's like dun 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 dun, dun, and then open the blast doors, open the blast doors.
Yeah,
Close the blast
exactly.
doors was gone in the re-release, and we're all looking at each other like, are we crazy?
Yeah,
Wasn't
we
there
actually thought we
wasn't
were
there a joke
imagining
in there?
it. Did we imagine that line?
Yeah,
Because
who
it's not
closed the
there.
blast doors if the stormtroopers didn't order it? Did they just close at random? I don't get it. So it turns out that was in one of the stereo mixes or something, and when they redid the audio, that somebody just made a mistake, I think, and
It
left
was
that
like-
out on
Yeah,
the
it
channel.
was in the wrong
channel.
channel or something.
And it
Yeah.
reappeared again later, and everything is right in the world. Han shootout at Mos Eisley when they blast their way out of Mos Eisley.
Oh yeah.
Every Trooper moment in New Hope is great, and Han slinging that blaster around. Chewie, get us out of here! I mean, great, just fantastic. Walker shoot the rebels before they take out the generator. I went over this Imperial officer.
Yeah.
It's an all-time classic for me. Let's see. I can't read my own handwriting. Oh, book. Jin's father's speech in the hologram in Rogue One.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Especially when he says, "We call it the Death Star," and they cut to that shot of the Death Star hovering over. They put just badassness back in the Death Star and made it a Star Wars vehicle again to be feared. And he does such a great job of emoting why we should care about this character that we don't really know anything about. They didn't do a great job of establishing a lot of the characters in Rogue One, but he's such a sympathetic, empathetic character, and the way he delivers it, which is odd for Mads Mikkelsen, but he does such a great job with it that you care about her via extension through him. And what a great, he just he just hit a home run with that scene, I think, and the editors and everybody did.
Oh yeah.
Star Destroyer in the Maelstrom and Solo, I thought was a great moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah.
This didn't make my top 10 list amazingly. The TIE Fighter attack from Star Wars
Yeah.
moment. Vader's entrance in Star Wars when he walks through the doorway. This might be on one of your guys. Han's torture sequence in The Empire Strikes Back when the sparks start going off and he starts screaming, and then they go out in the hall and you go, ah! You hear that coming? As much as I hate to see Han tortured, that's just what a great moment. The way Vader just soullessly is just watching this. I guess he's in a satisfactory amount of pain. And then the couple of Leia moments in The Last Jedi. The one where it cuts to her with her face in her hands on board when they come out of Lightspeed. Love that moment, and I love the moment where she's standing in the salt with the doorway, and they have that kind of fashion shot moment with her featuring her eyes.
Yeah, that's a beautiful visual.
Oh yeah, that's really with the high collar.
Yeah, so great. And
Can I mention a couple other honorable mentions? The Cantina in the first Star Wars film. The moment when you enter the cantina for the first time, and this again goes back to us seeing it as kids at a time when you didn't have the creature technology to show creatures that looked real and believable, and we have
just every mask mix.
We had lived in a world where it was just stupid-looking, dumb creatures you didn't believe in movies, and they walk into this place that's filled with creatures that look like they have their own real lives off of the movie set. It was like the moment when Star Wars was really its own lived world, and seeing all these weird beings that come from other worlds gathered together in one place. And
I don't think you can emphasize that enough. That might be the moment. I talked about the Ben hesitating, creating these whole worlds of story for Star Wars. That moment created incredible moments or potential going forward for Star Wars. They're still writing about those characters and fleshing those characters out. And if you were there, nobody understands the impact that scene had. For all the adults in the room, in the theater, they all loved that. We as kids loved it, but the adults, for some reason, really connected with that because it was a throwback to Westerns, and it was silly and funny, and it was constantly showing you something new, and for the time, it was amazing.
Yeah, it's like an intersection of worlds. And my other honorable mention has to be Donald Glover as Lando, the introduction of the young Lando in the new Solo movie. I love Lando. I was worried about having a young Lando, and he just knocked it out the park in his portrayal of Lando. From the moment that we first hear his voice, before we actually get a good view of him, it was Lando all over. And I am so ready for a Lando standalone film. So, yeah. So that's honorable mention for me.
Yeah, I'm on board for that.
I love the moment where he tried to go for the cheating card and it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And then he got beaten. Han says, "Fair and square, baby, fair and square."
Yeah.
That's one of my, I think that's
Love
just
it.
about my favorite moment in that movie, actually.
Yeah, that's excellent.
So those are
Okay.
honorable mentions.
All right. Anything else before we jump back in?
Now let's jump in.
Let's
Okay.
go.
So, Gundark, lead us off with your number 5.
Okay, my number 5 top moment in Star Wars movies is the burning of Vader's armor at the end of Return of the Jedi. The totally wordless scene
Mhm.
where we see, and the shot I love is seeing just Luke silhouetted against the burning pyre, where he's shot from the back, and you just see the silhouette of him standing, watching as the camera pans up into the sky, with the celebration of the destruction of the Death Star. That visual moment to me is kind of like the culmination of Luke's hero journey. I mean, I know he had the moment at the end when he's confronting the Emperor and he says, "I am a Jedi like my father before me." He's made his big decision at that point. But to have a visual moment that's without any dialogue, where you see him saying goodbye to the past, burning away the conflict of the past, literally burning the armor that represented the thing that he hated about his dad and about himself, showing that he's made peace with himself, the atonement with his father, and also the fact he's not just burning away the past, but he's also honoring his dad.
Mhm.
It's a funeral moment where he's honoring the person who gave his life to save him.
It's a Jedi funeral too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So all of that, and the fact that it's accompanied by the Twin Sunset Force theme
Yeah.
in John Williams'
Yeah.
musical score is one of the best uses, I think, of the Force theme in all of the Star Wars films. So that's a
Yep.
beautiful moment. That's my number 5.
Okay.
I think that that feeling of sadness at the end of Return of the Jedi helps redeem it from being just another happy ending,
Yeah.
where that's kind of a cop out. There is a feeling of melancholy.
Mhm.
Luke is scarred. Everybody who survived is scarred in a way, and you don't know exactly where the line is drawn between this wonderful victory and the sense of melancholy. And I think that elevates the end of that movie a great deal from just being the teddy bears, fireworks, and high fives.
Yeah.
Use the Carillion quote.
Well, it is pretty accurate.
It has it has that Lord of the Rings feeling where nothing is truly resolved with 100% happiness.
Yeah, without
there's
sacrifice.
there's a burden.
Yeah,
to
there's
bear
always a
for
price
the
that's
people
been
that have
paid.
survived. Yeah.
Yeah, redemption comes through
absolutely.
sacrifice. Yeah.
Okay, love that
So
moment.
that's my number
That's
5.
fantastic.
Okay,
And
Greedo, you're number 5.
Luke makes sure Anakin goes out like a Jedi there at the end too. Once we find that out in the prequels when they burn the Jedi's bodies when they die.
Right.
My number 5. I wish I could put it higher. It's the award ceremony at the end of Star
Okay.
Wars. If I had to pick a specific moment, it would be right at the end when they all turn and right before the written and directed by George Lucas comes up. But that whole scene is just always going to be one of my favorites. I can listen to the music to that whole sequence by itself.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Again, it's like tacked on but to me, there's a world of difference between the functionality of that scene, which is celebrating, giving our heroes, their due, showing, that they're all together, and the end of Phantom Menace, which is an exact replica of it,
Yeah.
where they're given medals and stuff. I just feel like it just works so much better in Star Wars, and it set the table for what are these characters going to do next. And we had to wait 3 years, which I've heard people complaining about 2-year waits on the movies now. It's like it was 6 months between movies just a minute ago. But yeah, the potential those characters show in that moment, and to me, that is the true happy ending that we get out of Star Wars. The happy moment is the awards ceremony when everything it's Shakespearean almost. Everything is put right. R2 is resurrected. 3PO looks like he always wanted to look. He's brilliant in gold. Princess Leia kind of sheds the cynical persona a little bit, or the more aggressive persona, and shows her regalness, and Luke and Han, Chewbacca, everything, the potential of those characters going forward. You walk out of the theater just wanting to see what happens next. And even when I watch that today, I'm sad the movie's over.
Yeah.
It's like I want that scene to just go on and on. And so anyway, that's my number 5. I wish it could be
That's
higher.
a good choice. I like that one. That was good. All right, so my number 5 is it took us until we got to number 5 to have a repeat. So mine is Vader's walk down the corridor in Rogue One.
Oh, yeah.
As he takes out all the rebels trying to keep him from getting the plans. Just incredible. We've already kind of talked about it, but yeah, that's just to me, the scene speaks for itself. If you like Darth Vader like I do, that's just, you don't need any more than that. You can't ask for more.
I will add one little thing. That's as close as we get these days to a genuine surprise in a Star Wars movie, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I was shocked at that scene. I thought the movie was over.
I
had no idea they were going to redeem Vader that way, because he was kind of a little bit, it was a mixed bag before that point.
Yeah.
And boy, what a moment. It was like just such a phenomenal treat.
Absolutely.
You left the theater just on an incredible high, and that's from the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, again,
The bad guy is
it's
so
one of those
amazing.
moments where he doesn't have to say anything. Moments
no.
without, the only words you get are from the scrambling rebels trying to get out of it. No. Take it. Before they're cutting out.
Okay,
Several transmissions were crawled aboard your ship by rebel spies. Okay.
so that's my number 5.
Number 5. Okay.
Gundark, what you got for number 4?
Okay, number 4.
We're in the top 5 now.
All right, now we're starting to repeat, which will probably continue. Mine is the lightsaber going to Rey's hand in Force Awakens is my number
Awesome.
4. I put that way up on the list because, of course, having the potential for a Lady Jedi who's taking a central role was cool, because that was suddenly became real in just a split second. It became real. But then also seeing it in the theater, and again I go back to the context of seeing it for the first time in the theater, and the marketing campaign that led up to Force Awakens made us believe that it was going to be the guys who were the lightsaber wielders, and because you saw in the trailers and on the posters, you see Kylo Ren and Finn
with lightsabers,
yeah. And you only see Rey with the staff. And the moment when that goes to her hand and lighting the saber, and the look on her face of she's shocked by it.
Yeah, she's even
And
surprised.
she even, the way Daisy Ridley plays it, she just like hesitates for a moment and then steels herself. The moment where she's like, okay, I'm going to do it. I got to do it, I guess. That's one of those wonderful hero moments where, the hero has greatness thrust upon them. That moment where you finally accept it kind of because you don't know what else to do. That's cool. And then when we saw it in the theater too, there was a dude in the back of the theater that just screamed out, "Oh yes!" And I was like, "Oh god, yeah, that's awesome!"
I love it.
The power of that moment, and the callback too to the lightsaber in the snow in Empire Strikes Back. Whenever Luke calls the lightsaber to him when he's in the
that's
Wampa
pretty
cave,
inescapable for me too. Yeah,
cool. And one final thing connected with that moment is also the sword in the stone moment. I love our Arthurian legend. It was my big mythos before the Star Wars mythos came along. I was really into Arthurian mythos. And the identifying moment for the hero when they take on that symbolic weapon that's to be used to fight for good and using might for right. Having the power to do that over the bad guy, that she's set up in conflict with Kylo Ren, and the saber goes deliberately to her and not to him. That it's kind of like a callback to all the myths that I really loved. So that's one of my best moments.
Excellent.
Number 4.
Good call.
I think everybody in the theater was ready to see Kylo Ren get his ass kicked at that point.
Yeah, I think so.
So, yeah, when the saber didn't go to him, everything, even though he was beat up and everything, he had just killed Han Solo, and you really wanted to see him get his comeuppance.
Yeah.
And so that added to that moment, too, when she's like, it's all right, you're going to punish this guy now. Yeah, good moment. So it's
Okay.
me next.
Rito, number
Right?
4. Yep.
Number 4. I just have written on my list R2 and the lightsaber. Return of the Jedi. My first, I think, Return of the Jedi moment on my list is this Luke on the skiff when Jabba says, "Put him in," and Luke does the little salute to R2D2, and you know something's about to go down, and the whole build-up in Jabba's palace, which has become one of the most famous things from Star Wars, the whole Jabba's palace, it's kind of a drag in the movie. It drags on, and you wonder where it's going. And finally, we're going to get some action, and something's going to happen, and we get Luke's plan, however primitive it was, revealed. And when that lightsaber, when R2 fires the lightsaber and it flies through the air and lands in Luke's hand, and it gives the audience almost that knowing look, like, okay, here we go, you know. And the soundtrack kind of goes from, you know, the Jabba, fully Jabba themed and everything, to kicking into Star Wars gear at that point. Just, you know, that Star Wars theme just hits you in the face and it all starts going down. What a great moment. You know, I wish, again, that all these could be my number 1, and that could be my number 1. I love, also, we get the reveal of a green saber. You know, it's a whole new saber. Yeah. It's we don't know what, we're resetting everything. We don't know what's going to happen next.
Right.
And that's also the moment we have waited through all those movies, over all those years when we first saw them, to see Luke show Jedi powers kicking ass. And it's the moment when you know that's going to happen. It's going to happen now.
Yeah, he's not just full of hot air when he's saying, you got to do this or die. He's actually it's going to happen. The soundtrack in that moment is leading up to that with the tubas or whatever it is, you know, and the trumpets, when they're cutting to everybody's faces and it builds that tension. I love that as well. So, but R2 and Luke will forever be a team in my mind. R2 is the only one on the game plan, maybe Leia too, but I love that moment of them working together, and those two characters are beyond, you know, servant and master or droid or whatever. They're allies and co-conspirators, and Luke recognizes how valuable R2 is in that moment.
Oh yeah, I totally buy that. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent moment. Okay.
What's your number 4, Carillion?
My number 4. We're going to the prequel trilogy. And
really? Number 4?
Number 4.
This.
Hey!
Okay,
Hey!
let's guess. I bet it's from Revenge of the Sith, the number 3 movie of all Star Wars movies. Revenge of the Sith.
And it's that moment when Jar Jar goes, Annie! Or whatever. It's got that moment, isn't it? Or was that in that movie? Obi! Annie!
It's taking him a moment to recover here. He's smitten.
Or is it, you turned her against me?
No.
Is that one?
That's all the way above.
You turned her against me! You turned her against me! Hey! Great.
He's weeping.
Okay, Gundar. We got Carilion's register.
Really just was weeping. Okay.
We made him weep finally.
All right. So yes, it's from Revenge of the Sith. I will give Gundar credit. It is from Revenge of the Sith.
I knew it.
My 3rd favorite all-time Star Wars movie.
Right.
Much to her shock and awe. So, okay, and this is another one of those moments that no matter how many times I've watched this, I can't not feel the same way. And it's the moment that Anakin ignites his lightsaber in the presence of the younglings.
Oh.
That is, and it's the reaction actually of that little kid actor that does it. It just seemed kind of just a little bit of a what, you know, and then it just cuts away. It's like, oh my goodness, But at that point, it's like there is no redemption for Anakin in this film. From
Yeah,
that
it's like,
point,
did
it's
Star Wars really
all
choose to
downhill.
go there?
It is time for your final lesson, youngling.
So anyway, so that's why that moment is all the way up at number 4 for me, because that's just such an
Wow, I didn't
ominous,
expect that.
serious. Well, that's one of the most darkest moments for Star Wars ever,
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
thematically speaking.
Yeah, the last third of that movie has many shocking moments in it, and that's
Yeah,
certainly
it really does.
Yeah, if you think about going from the throne room scene that Greedo was talking about, I mean, to go to that, yeah, to actually see a Star Wars movie go there where they're going to slaughter children, you see why he became what he became. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
I do think a lot of the Star Wars history that leads to that moment that started in the original Star Wars script and in the original novelization is based on Roman history and also on different, British history, English history, stuff like that. Mostly Roman though, and you get rid of your enemies. If there's anybody else with a claim to power, you get rid of them, and so it shouldn't be that shocking, but it was, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
consistent
that's
with
never
that
not
one.
going to be shocking.
That one angle of them kind of leaning on real history, it's consistent with that for sure.
Right. Agreed. Okay, so we're on to third best moment in Gundark. It's you.
Number 3, Twin Sunset from Tatooine. Luke
Good
looking
call.
off at the Twin Sunset for several different reasons. I think if the burning of Vader's armor is kind of the culmination of Luke's hero journey, is all summed up in a visual image, the Twin Sunset scene is the inauguration of the hero journey, all summed up in that one image. Because you have Luke's just received the call to adventure from R2D2, Princess Leia, and he's at that moment where he's already chafing to get away. He wants to be more than he is. He wants something more than his ordinary life. Looking away literally to the horizon, like Yoda complained of later, always looking away. He's looking away to the horizon, watching that beautiful sunset. And the fact that it's a twin sunset, again, I gotta go back to, we saw these movies, back in 77, and seeing a world that looks like it's really a different world. It's not our world. It's really a different world. Evoking that sense of there are infinite worlds out there that you can visit, and the longing that he is having to go visit those other worlds is that visual image of looking at those two sunsets of another universe entirely. It's really evocative and epic.
Yeah, the movie is doing for us what he wants life to do for him. The movie is taking us along to places we've never seen before, and he feels it's mundane, but we feel like we're in this magical place and moment. Yeah.
And the music again, you have the Force theme, or also I think they call it the Twin Sunset theme, on the tracks of the original musical score, that is then carried forward. I mean, that scene sets the meaning of that musical cue that continues on throughout Star Wars after that. So that's just it's a foundational scene for
the musical cue there is amazing. That's one of the ultimate shining moments from that film, of a lot of shining moments musically speaking. That's goosebumps central every time. It's so good.
There's also the imagery there of duality, which comes up over and over and over again, and specifically could be referring to him and his twin sister, and the fact that their destinies are joined, even though he doesn't know it. What he's looking at is symbolic of his future and the future of the galaxy and the Force and all of that stuff.
Yeah, and his own division too. Will he become? What will he become in the future? There are multiple ways, and later when we find out that Vader is his dad, he has that twin choice again, Sith or Jedi, So it sets up all kinds of motifs and themes that carry on throughout the rest of the films.
And it beautifully informs you that you are on an alien world again, and you are in an alien place again, and
Right.
you're far, far away, and you don't know what horizon you're looking at.
Absolutely.
It's familiar, but it's so different.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that was
Greedo,
what?
number 3. That was an
Number
excellent
3?
one. Yep.
My number 3 is Duel on Cloud City. And again, I'm cheating because this isn't a little moment. This is a big moment. And I've watched it since I made this list, and you could break it up into several parts. I could pick the scene where Vader telekinetically throws all the things at Luke, and the battle turns, and Luke realizes he's overmatched, and he's thrown through the window. Phenomenal moment. But I got to go with the initial part of the fight. The Force is with you, young Skywalker, but you're not a Jedi yet. And the way Luke, everything is told to us about the relationship of these characters by the colors, by the motions, by their actions. It's kinetic filmmaking. You see it happening. We're not told. We're shown, which is brilliant. And Irvin Kershner wasn't an action director, as far as I know. He wasn't known for action, but they break it down to motions, to symbolism. We see them in silhouette.
Yeah.
We see Luke hasn't learned anything because he violates the Jedi code by drawing his saber first.
Yep.
Never for attack, and yet Vader waits for him and lets him use his aggressive feelings to come to him. Vader's fencing him with one hand in the beginning. I think it's Bob Anderson, the Swordmaster, playing Vader in that part, and just so brilliantly done. The reds and the blues in the carbon freezing chamber, the predominance of red showing you that the dark side owns this place, and Luke is basically descended into hell. And I love the bit where Luke takes control of the fight and shows Vader that he's got more fight in him after he tries to freeze him, and Luke jumps out, shows that he's learned a little bit, and takes the fight to him, even though you can see the strain on Luke's face when Vader's saying, "Come on, only your anger is going to defeat me." And you can see that Luke is fighting that anger, and he rallies. But I don't think he rallies with anger there. I think he's actually using his Jedi training there. And that moment where they're fighting in the steam, when Vader or Luke cuts the steam.
Oh yeah,
I've always wanted a poster of that moment. That's one of my favorite images. And it only lasts a second. And Luke forces Vader off the edge of that thing, and you think maybe Luke's going to take the upper hand, but he can't do it, and it's really Vader luring him into more of his realm, deeper, darker, where he's going to reveal the terrible truths to him. And anyway, that could easily be my number one moment, but it's the best physical conflict between two characters I've ever seen in a movie, personally for me, and some of the best imagery. Some of the reasons why we love Luke, why we love Vader and love to hate Vader, and also just so poignant in that Luke is going to fail. And not only that, but he turned his back on his friends to go confront Vader in that moment too, because he had a choice to follow Leia. She's saying it's a trap, and he knowingly puts his gun away and goes and leaves R2 behind. He leaves everybody behind to put the risk and the power on his own shoulders, thinking this is the moment I'm going to get revenge for my father.
Yeah.
This is the moment where I am going to set everything right, and he doesn't even know the score of the game.
Yeah.
So, wow, just how amazing. But
I think you hit it on the head with kinetic filmmaking. I've always taken that from the very beginning of that duel as well. The way Luke draws first, and he takes an aggressive posture. And then Vader just kind of pauses a second and just responds with a very slow sort of, okay, well, if you want to, and then pulls out the saber really slowly. And like you said, it goes on to where he just kind of parries him with one hand for the first, section of the duel before he actually starts even taking it seriously almost. That's always really spoken to me. I always thought that was really, really well done, the way that was structured.
Yeah, I'm glad that they edited out the shots of Vader flying about the carbon freezing chamber that they did in the original, in the filming of it, because it
would have made him too powerful.
Yeah.
It would have informed you what was going on too quickly. Yeah.
He
Instead, you got a slower build.
Yeah, as a restrained power, it gives kind of dignity and extra horror to his power in that scene. And you're seeing a total novice who does not understand that power go up against a master who is going to show him the hard way, teach him.
Luke still thinks he can win at that point.
Yeah.
Vader's very slow to show him the truth.
Yeah.
And I want to say also, before we move on, my other favorite moment from that is when Luke nicks Vader in the shoulder right at the
Oh,
end, right
yeah.
before Vader
Yeah.
Vader decides enough of this and cuts his hand off.
Yeah, enough of this.
When we first
I'm
got that
done.
on, video back in the 80s, I froze that moment and forwarded it frame by frame, and that lightsaber goes beyond his shoulder pad and enters on one side of his neck and
Yeah.
exits on the other side of his helmet. So he was centimeters away from beheading Vader in that
I
second,
remember
just with a desperate swing.
I remember doing that. We froze it like frame by
And
frame.
we were like, "Oh my God, Luke
And we're
won
like, look
the
how close he
fight!"
was to cutting his head off.
It reminds me of that moment in The Force Awakens when Finn hits Kylo in the shoulder.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember that. And then
Yeah.
Kylo says, "Screw you," and just takes him out.
Yeah.
It's like fury and just enthusiasm will get you a lucky shot, but you're not gonna win
Yeah.
Right.
against somebody with skill.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, that's an excellent moment. I can see, like you said, that could easily be a number one moment. Okay, so my we're on number 3. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, my number 3 is from.
Hey, I want to ask you something.
Hey, number 3.
Did you consult the people of Corellia for this choice? Did you let them vote?
Actually, I did.
Good.
So
How are they doing? Since the Empire,
they're hanging in there.
Empire pulled out all the
had to send.
shipyards.
I had to send my my Borgullet back to them. He wasn't feeling great, so they're taking care of him right now. And then one day, hopefully, we can dust him off and actually use him again. But,
Rejuvenating in those sewers.
he is. He loves it in the sewers. So my number 3 is from original Star Wars. It's on the Death Star after they've escaped the trash compactor, and they get confronted with the stormtroopers, and Han goes chasing off after the group and says, "I'll meet you back at the ship." And kind of that whole section, but specifically him rounding the corner.
Right.
And in the original, I'm talking about, of course, when the stormtroopers are at a dead end and they have no choice but to turn and fight, and just the way he comes just so crazily around that corner, it's like, what? He has that look on his face like, oh, shit. And then he has to turn and hightail it back out of there. Just that one little segment is just like, it's always been one of my favorite little moments in that first film.
Great. That was number 3, right?
That was number 3, and to me, that's just part of. To me, it helped just really flesh out Han's personality. I don't know. Moments like that just made me love that character even more.
Yeah, I thought
that is an amazing moment.
There would have to be a Corellian moment up in the top.
Yeah, the people of Corellia standing tall with their votes being registered at number 3.
Yes.
I love that moment too, and everything on the Death Star with those characters cemented. In no time at all, it cemented a relationship between all those characters.
Yeah.
That in that energy, all the energy of trying to escape the Death Star, they then begin to sort out how they really relate to each other when they're on the Falcon leaving, and they begin to have discussions about how they fit together or whatever. But for that moment, those characters instantly gel together, even though they're arguing the whole time. They don't work together well at all.
Yeah.
You just want to keep seeing more and more and more of this.
Yeah,
which
the chemistry is
the
undeniable.
movies kind of deny us that from that point on. But it's kind of the high point of all of them together. They're dynamic all together. But
Yeah. That was number 3, right?
That was my
Number 3, Gundar.
So Gundar, you're number
Okay.
2. We're getting to the bitter end here.
Okay, number 2. Number 2 is another moment from the sequel trilogy, the new trilogy.
Oh, wow!
And this is
number 2.
This is another Rey moment.
Okay.
It's the last scene of Force Awakens, where she presents the lightsaber to Luke.
Oh, sure,
That scene, I still, even with the problematic, to say the least, follow-up in The Last Jedi with that scene still gets me. It makes me teary-eyed when I see it. It just gets me, and again, seeing it in the theater for the first time when we haven't seen Luke Skywalker on screen for decades, and he turns to the camera, and again, totally wordless scene. And so many of my top moments are without any dialogue at all. It's just spectacular visuals and wonderful performance by Mark Hamill and Daisy Ridley, where she approaches him with trepidation. he turns and looks at her, and you get the moment where we get the real close up of his face, and there's like a reflection of tears in his eyes, and you just to end the film on that moment without any explanation or words. I know that there was a lot of controversy about that. We've been waiting for Luke Skywalker to appear for decades. Why didn't Luke get to do anything or say anything? That moment had such emotional power to me.
It really did.
Because he didn't say anything. It was almost like if he said or did anything, it would have trivialized that moment. Because it's like the hero who's starting her. Okay. Like the hero who's starting her own story.
Ironic.
The hero, yeah. We won't think about what come after. But the hero who's starting her own story arc, confronting the hero that we've grown up with, seeing him for the first time, bringing the iconic lightsaber that has such baggage attached to it, and after having the lightsaber choosing her, essentially, earlier. And again, it's another of those sword in the stone moments where she's presenting herself. In part, we feel that it's a presentation of a person who feels like she's not only challenging Luke to teach her or to help her to know what to do with this weapon, but also she has claimed it, for as much trepidation as she had about it and is seeking out this master, she's claimed it for herself. And so that's just a wonderful moment, again, because a Lady Jedi, I know we had Lady Jedis earlier in the films, but without speaking roles, and I wasn't familiar with Clone Wars to know the female Jedi apprentices and characters in Clone Wars. So to see the potential of a Lady Jedi entering the main films was a wonderful moment, and it just made me feel the power of representation too. As being a girl and seeing a girl step up to my hero, and so I'm taking on the mantle of the hero, that was a powerful moment of feeling like I'm really a part of the film. So for everything that came after that, I'm not going to speak about anymore about The Last Jedi. That moment is just incredibly powerful turning point to me. So it's number 2 for me. It's right up there.
Good choice. Very good choice.
Yeah, it's a great moment. It unfortunately was turned into the epic setup for a joke. But,
yeah.
Okay, so anyway, that was great, and I agree. It's a great moment. I love the soundtrack in that moment again. Yeah. John Williams rules. And a great location that they chose. But they should have continued that scene another 5 minutes so that the next guy couldn't decide what to do next. Okay, my number 2 moment, I called it Han Solo Returns. And I think I was telling Carillion last night, I was like trying to remember what that meant. I was like, Han Solo Returns, is that when he came out of the carbonite? Because I wrote these lists down. I was like, Han Solo Returns, when in Force Awakens, when Chewie were home, he returns a bunch. He returns more than the Jedi do, in the movies. And he could return one more time. We'll see, Episode 9. I'm still not convinced he's gone forever. But no, it's the moment that we talked about that you covered so well when the Millennium Falcon dives on the trench on the Death Star in Star Wars. And once he commits to a course of action, he doesn't consider right or wrong or anything else. He's Yahoo, Yahoo!
Yeah.
And Harrison Ford pulled that off so well.
Yeah.
And I still, to this day, wonder who fired the guns. I still have no idea who fired the guns. But can they fire them from the cockpit?
I never thought of that.
I've always wondered.
I thought of that.
Was Chewie crammed in that thing?
Chewie's probably crammed in there.
Or do they have did he fire the little machine gun, the side gun, that they have dropped down? Who can they target from the cockpit? I'm very confused by that, and still to this day. But back then I was young and naive and innocent. I assumed there was an explanation. I didn't worry about it. And it was such a powerful moment for all the reasons we covered in part 1 that I really couldn't put it much lower than number 2 for me. So, and I was a Luke Skywalker fan first and foremost. Out of all the original trilogy characters, it just naturally that's who I identified with. But that really just put Han Solo. That moment put him in that place where everybody loved him. I mean, I think most people. There's a few people who for some reason claim they never liked Han Solo, but that moment was just such an emotional payoff. the death of Biggs right before that
Yeah.
was lessened by the fact that they cut out big scenes.
True.
So we have an emotional payoff with another character that we built up that's going to move forward and be one of the main characters, and it helps make up for that. That movie had everything, everything, and that's been copied so many times. The person facing the conflict, coming back and doing the right thing, but never so naturally, so innocently, and it was so much power to set up a character that is beloved to this day,
Yeah.
and the Falcon, the ship that is beloved to this day. And so anyway, my number 2 moment.
Excellent. Good choice. All right, so my number 2 moment, oddly, it's going to be an establishing shot again. Because again, as we've discussed, I kind of approach this a little differently as far as like pinpoint moments. For me, it was the wide angle shot of the I don't even know what we'd call it, the big cavernous inside of Cloud City during the duel with Luke and Vader. It's after Luke's gone out of the window, and then we come back after another scene, and you see him walking along the sort of bridge there, and then he turns and goes into the hallway to try and
Vader's holding his breath. Yeah,
Vader's holding his breath. Because he suddenly starts breathing when he jumps out. but that whole little scene, just the way the sound effects are with the wind whipping around and the lights blinking, I don't know. I've always loved that as a kid. I just thought that was so cool. I love just those types of shots. Really, again, like I said with the one I referred to on Return of the Jedi, it just expands the world for me, makes it feel bigger, and I love that kind of vibe.
Again, it's another ominous shot too.
Yeah.
Because the rest of our heroes have just left, and you have that big soundtrack moment. Bam, bam, bam! The soundtrack hits you, and then it drops, and you hear the wind blowing, and you realize Luke is alone. Luke has been left behind, and he's failed his mission at that point. He's not rescuing anybody, and it's him and Vader, and it's going downhill from that point on. He's already beaten. He's limping along that thing. He's almost looking for a way out at that point.
Yeah, and it's an extreme long shot where you see the cavernous abyss beneath that area too, and there's nowhere to go except to go back through there and face Vader. The only way you're getting out there is going through Darth Vader.
I don't like my odds on that. Your only way is going through Vader. All right, so that's my number 2. So now we're down to...
That's great. I love the way you approach this list. It's great.
So down to the last 3. So Gundark, what's your number 1 moment?
Okay, my number 1. No, I Am Your Father. I mean, I know that's everybody's number 1, but it is my number 1. Okay, it's my number 1.
I thought you meant no, as in it's not going to be.
I thought you meant that too. No, not that scene.
It is my number.
I am your father.
It is my number 1 moment, and despite the fact that it was spoiled before we went to see the film, and it was spoiled by Greedo, who told it to me after reading the novelization, which for some unaccountable reason was published prior to the release of the film.
I was bored.
Prior to the release of the film, why?
I picked up the novelization at a drugstore or a grocery store where Mom was working, and I had to wait for her. I was like, oh, look, there it is. Look, there it is. The Empire Strikes Back. Oh, look.
Keep it to yourself? He told me.
I was like, Han and Leia are making out on the front of that book. What is going on? I had to know,
and those were the days when I wanted Luke to be with Leia, and I was more upset that Han got the girl, than Darth Vader became his father. So
I thought the farm boy and the princess would be together for sure.
Yeah, right.
But the pirate and princess is another tried
pirate and the princess
romance novel trope.
But that moment, I have to say again, the direction and the cinematography of that moment, the way Darth Vader, you got a guy in a mask, that's expressionless. And you got to have an actor, first of all, who act through it, with Dave Prowse with his body language really intimidating, threatening, powerful, and majestic. But then also the way the mask is shot. and the way it's lit, to where you get a sense of the dignity of that character and the terror. And you look at it from Luke's perspective too. You're seeing a lot of the imagery of Vader from Luke's perspective as he's hanging out there having to make this last decision, my life or my dad. Is this person my dad? And then he knows this is his dad. Do I go with him or do I give my life? The way the mask is shot to give us this sense of this powerful character who's making an offer where you feel that character's emotions behind the mask. And then Mark Hamill's performance is just outstanding. I think about what would he have gone through when they tell him, you're going to have to do this scene where the villain is revealed as your dad and no one else knows it. What, even David Prowse wasn't told when they shot it,
He said Obi-Wan killed your father.
Yeah.
Is the line he delivered.
And then he's not there when they film Luke's reaction.
Yeah, and so he's played this one of the most popular heroes in cinema history, and he has to play this moment where one of the most popular villains in cinema history is revealed to be his dad, and it just brings up whole realms of what's going to happen to the hero now. Who is the hero? Who is he? And all of that seems to go through Luke and Mark Hamill's facial performance and his vocal performance in that scene. So all around it's just an outstanding scene that flipped all of Star Wars on its head. It just changed everything. So,
it absolutely did, absolutely.
So that's my number one.
That was total destruction of the character too. You saw on screen in a good way.
Yeah.
That totally destroyed his character. He was obliterated in that moment and had to rethink everything, and I love the duality of the whole first half of the movie. You get the pitch from the good guys, and the second moments there towards the end of the movie, you get the pitch from the bad guys. Yeah. And you realize, you realize there's more to it than what the good guys have been telling you. There's more to this. There's other things to be considered. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic.
I just remember my initial reaction to that line was I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
I said, no, he's lying. He's lying to him. He's just trying to tell him that to convince him to join him.
I never doubted it for a second.
I just did. My initial gut reaction was like, no, there's no way.
No, I doubted it maybe for half a second, maybe a quarter of a second, maybe less. Yeah. And then I knew, no, it was true. When Luke felt it was true, as he obviously does at the end of that scene, I knew it was the truth. So.
Yeah, when he says, "Ben, why didn't you tell me?"
Yeah,
it says everything. It's like he is convicted that is the truth.
He's convinced at that point. Yeah,
but he's also like I said, he's pretty much destroyed and helpless at that point. So, anyway, that's a great kind of cliffhanger that they left us with in Empire, and maybe the most iconic moment in movie history, modern movie history. Definitely the most iconic line, probably, or one of them.
It's arguable for sure.
Okay, so that was your number one moment.
All right.
I am your father.
Excellent.
My number one moment, I called it "Binary Sunset," and it's from Star Wars. It's already, we're doubling up again. It's already been on this list, so I won't go on and on about it, but. Well, the reason that moment, I always come back to that moment for me, is that moment solidified who our hero was. Yeah. With nothing. I mean, the beginning, I don't know, less than a third of the movie, but a significant portion of the movie has already gone on, and we're introduced to Luke, and he gets his little theme when he comes out and everything, but he's not that inspiring as a character to begin with. And that scene is all about his potential, and it's all about us as kids being in a sometimes less than desirable place, and wanting something better. And that's why that scene is why I instantly connected with him from that point on, and why to me Luke is the hero of the Star Wars saga and always will be. I mean, until after I'm gone, anyway. Until well after I'm gone. And I just think that moment is a moment of empathy, and it's a beautiful moment. Looking at it now, when I watch it now, it is not like a truly over the top, ham fisted epic moment. It's just a naturally somehow epic moment. They nothing else symbolizes Star Wars for me than just the coming together of elements. Something that could have been and was silly and was stupid, but somehow elevated itself above those elements, and all these things come together. You've got an unknown, actor from television movies and stuff and from soap operas, lit with this sunset. You throw in the binary sunset looking so convincing, and I would love to have a time machine and go back and look at that on film on the screen again.
Yeah,
you have to understand what that looked like in that moment, and what we didn't know who John Williams was. Even though we saw Jaws before this, and we were becoming aware of him and everything, and we were becoming aware of his work. But the Star Wars, the Force theme, and the Star Wars theme in that moment, everything comes together and gels there, and it's so much larger than its parts, and it's spiritual, but it's also mundane and very connectable and human. And for me, Luke became the hero of Star Wars forever from that moment forward. I never doubted him. I always knew who Luke Skywalker was. I don't know how, but I always knew who Luke Skywalker was from that one moment where he's looking at the sunsets, and this is our guy. This is our hero going forward. This is Star Wars. So I won't go into what's happened now because we could. There's another great binary sunset moment in Star Wars later that I do believe is a great moment as well, but nothing will top this one. And as a kid, it brought me on board. It just sealed the deal. And I don't even know that I really knew it was happening when I was watching it, because I was so enamored with the Vader and the guns and the stormtroopers and the droids and the spaceships. But that is the spiritual core for me of what I connected to. And I don't think you needed to be a white American male to connect with that moment.
Not at all.
That's a great thing about Luke. He was not a muscle-bound. He was flawed from the very beginning. Anybody could relate to him, even if you were annoyed by him.
Yeah.
But that was the starting point for everything for me. And so that's the number one moment. And so many of these could be number one. And next week, but I think if I really honest myself and I go back to it, that is the moment. That is the number one Star Wars moment for me.
When you said that established Luke's potential, and he was an ordinary hero, I think about before that we had seen him complaining about moisture evaporators whining, but then he gets that beautiful epic moment. You got to hand it to George Lucas for all the grief that fans have given him for the prequel trilogy, and complaints about him being the faster, more intense director, who doesn't want. That's one of those pauses that just kind of laid the groundwork for everything else to come. So yeah, that's a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good choice. All right, so to wrap this whole thing up, my number one Star Wars moment is Luke and the binary sunset.
Is it really?
That is also mine. Absolutely.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, that is one.
I thought you were yanking my chain for a second.
Yeah, no. It absolutely is, because I can't really add anything to what you just said, because you basically nailed it. Along with Gundark earlier, when you mentioned that scene, that is the encapsulation of the hopes and the dreams and the expectations of Luke going forward, and from where it sits in the first film, it sets the table for the future of everything that was going to be Star Wars. Like you said, Greedo, that established Luke as the hero. It's like you knew from that moment on, that's our guy. Going forward, it's him. He's the main driving force of this entire saga.
Yeah,
and it's just it's not ham-fisted, like you said. You did a good job explaining that too. It's not a ham-fisted scene. It could have been, but it wasn't. The music swell obviously is the kind of the key to that scene. And then what I also like about it, to go just a step further from that scene, is how the way the music kind of quiets down right after that, and then very next scene you see him walking back into his basically his garage or whatever, to find out that R2 has left. And it's just I just love the way that it sort of kind of moves straight on from that moment into, okay, let me get back to what I got to do.
Yeah.
Let me get back to regular life here, and so I have these hopes and dreams, and I want to go fly around the galaxy, and do this and do that, and save the galaxy. But I got to go work on these new droids.
I gotta go back to the garage.
Exactly. Work in the garage. So kind of for all those reasons, and the both that you both mentioned, that's my favorite all-time Star Wars moment.
And I would add that if you look at the deleted scenes from Star Wars, it even becomes more apparent that, and Harrison Ford always said that George Lucas is Luke. That he just is convinced that Lucas thinks of himself as Luke, and that's his playground that he created for his alter ego. But Luke is looked down upon by everyone.
Yeah.
If you add those, only Biggs is the only person who says, Luke, the galaxy is bigger than what all these people are looking at right here in front of them, and someday you'll figure that out. And even his aunt and uncle aren't telling him the truth. They're holding things back. He knows there's something else going on, but he can't put his finger on it. And he's struggling with identity and should I be looking up at the sky? Should I be, or should I just have my nose in the dirt, and taking care of business? And everything's about to change right after that moment. That's when R2 takes off and he has to pursue him. He connects to Ben Kenobi. And it's so symbolic. And also, like I mentioned when Gundart mentioned it, if you go back and kind of retcon it, the twins thing is very important, and the duality is very important. I have a feeling Lucas planned that because he had a sister for Luke that was supposed to come in Empire.
Yeah.
And so even if it wasn't Leia from the beginning, there was a twin motif there that was going to be fulfilled, and that it's pretty mind-boggling to think that he actually thought to put that symbolism in there.
Yeah.
If he did, it could have been a special effects guy who said, hey, why don't we make it a dual sunset? I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
and you get something similar when Obi-Wan is separating the twins in Revenge of the Sith.
Yes, you get the
at end of
twin sunset
film.
again.
Yeah. You get him bringing Luke to Tatooine for the first time.
And the atmosphere of Tatooine that just prematurely ages everyone who stays there.
Yeah.
Owen and Uncle Owen and Aunt Brew are totally young, and hey, they're 19 years later, they're like, I need a farmhand. Yeah, but that's awesome. So our number one moments, Carillion was Binary Sunset, mine was Binary Sunset, yours was I Am Your Father. No argument with any of those.
You can't argue with any of those moments, I don't think.
I'm amazed looking back at these how many came from the first movie.
Yeah.
There's just, you can't look past that movie, no matter how much you think the world may have changed and it's naive and it's slow and it may not have held up. You could take every moment from that movie. Every segment of that movie is so important and so cool. You could make your whole list from that one film.
Oh yeah.
But
easily.
Yeah, and it's hard to get past that to the other movies.
Yeah, coming up with the list was very difficult. I had to keep pruning things away from A New Hope.
Yeah. None of us even put the destruction of the Death Star. The penultimate moment in the first Star Wars. None of us put that. We had a surprising lack of Han Solo moments too, I think.
Yeah.
There was a lot more other moments, and I think Carillion had the Han in the corridor, and I had honorable mention a bunch of Han Solo moments, but I did have my number two was Han coming back at the end of Star Wars. So
right.
And I guess the award ceremony counts as his moment too. It's everybody's moment.
Yeah.
That's what I like about it so much. All the characters are there together. One of those few happy moments we get with them all together.
Well, that's in the first film. That's my favorite moments of the first film is when they're all together. Kind of like what you said, from the moment that they break Leia out of the detention cell, and they just kind of from there on, they're dysfunctional and they argue, but there's an undeniable chemistry there that you want to see more of.
And I would also point out that is sort of the way Star Wars succeeded at passing the torch, even though we didn't know there was a torch to pass. But Obi-Wan drives so much of the action holds so much of the narrative together and makes you believe in the story up to that point. And then he says, your destiny lies along a different path from mine. And from that moment, he's dealing with old business that isn't really going to affect these. And these new characters, or the younger, I won't say new, younger characters, all have to gel together. And Obi-Wan is replaced by Leia and by the dynamic between all those characters. And then Obi-Wan sacrifices himself. So that's a really excellent way to show the passing of the torch that they've tried to do in some of the other movies that hasn't always worked out as well, I think.
Yeah. All right. Any last thoughts as we wrap up?
I think that's it. I'm happy with our list.
Yeah, I think so. I enjoyed it. That was a pretty good exercise. We'll have to do something like this similar in the future. All right.
I will say I can't wait for our least favorite moments.
Yeah, those are coming.
It is
You've been
coming.
warned.
Right.
So for Gundark and Greedo, this is Curly and Trader signing off again. Let us know your comments, your likes, your dislikes, your suggestions. Find us on Facebook. Just search the Cantina Club. Join our Facebook page. Like our Facebook page. Go to our YouTube channel. Do the same thing there, please. Your comments and likes go a long way to helping us stay on there. And we're also on Twitter at Cantina78. So until next time, we hope to hear from you. Bye-bye.
We all know around here, the solo always does shots first. Singing yup no, yup yup. You're singing yup no, cha yup no, at the Cantina Club.
Hey!
Hey!